Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, these are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. You should be using them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank our friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com, and their team is going to have you creating world-class marketing content for your school social media channel in seconds. Maybe it's a simple social media post to celebrate a big win, or it could be an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things your district is doing. Go to Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. And again, they'll have you up and running. It's professional graphic design made easy. That's Gipper.com. We also want to thank our friends at Hometown. Hometown is giving schools and organizations a game-changing opportunity with their suite of solutions for things like, yeah, they still do online and digital ticketing, but they do a whole lot more. How about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction, and a whole lot more? Whether you're an athletic director, a head coach, or a school administrator, Hometown makes it easy for you and your school to save time, raise more money, and bring your community together. For more information, just go to hometown.com. That's it, hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record board or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You got to see these to believe it. Put one of these in your gym lobby, your main school hallway. It's got to be a magnet for kids, for coaches. How about parents, sponsors, alumni? Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Check out their products today. We also want to thank Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's a lot more. Join the 8 million users. Go to huddle.com. Find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you will use every single day for scheduling, rosters, results. For me, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is gold. You got to check it out. Go to homecampus.com for more information. Make sure you mention the podcast, homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but my assistant AD did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience. It'll be the same for you. Go to the Ohio University Online Masters of Athletic Administration to get more information. We want to thank our friends at Snap Mobile. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school with great success, and so will you. Parents loved it. Coaches loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Take a look at their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's Snap Raise. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for everything, kids, coaches, parents. And the information that would come back on these surveys, almost always over the top positive, and it'll be the same for you. The surveys also connect you to those squeaky wheel parents so you can hear their concerns, hopefully address them. But having all of that positive feedback, sometimes 98%, it's tremendously valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, or how about your school board, or maybe your principal. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying right here in Florida today, and we're going to be visiting with a coach. Our guest is Tessa Taylor. She's the head cross country and the head track coach at Frostproof High School. All of our loyal listeners in the Midwest and the Dakotas that have icy temperatures, just think about that name, Frostproof, Florida. Tessa Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Jake.
Well, you and I connected through our good friends at Florida State University and their coach program, Dr. Megan Bunning, Dr. Courtney Beck. So excited to have you on. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own college years, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Tessa Taylor origin story?
So I was born in Texas. My dad was in the military, but shortly afterwards, we moved to Easley, South Carolina, which is a small town in the upstate. And that's where I grew up, went to elementary through high school there. And growing up, I was into sports. I really wanted to be a gymnast, but if you could see me, I'm 5'8", so that was not in my genes to be a gymnast. I was too tall for that. But I really fell in love with running through my elementary school PE coach. This was during the era of the presidential fitness test where you had to do all these different exercises, and the final one was to run a timed mile. And that was my favorite part. And so in elementary school, I got a taste for running. And when I entered junior high, I joined the track team, then started running cross country, ended up going on a scholarship to Furman University, which is it's Division I, but it's a small liberal arts school in Greenville, South Carolina. And I competed there, and upon graduating, was an assistant coach there for a couple years. With track and cross country, it's a year-round sport. You have cross country in the fall, indoor track in the winter, outdoor track in the spring, and then summer conditioning. So after a couple years, I wanted to start a family of my own and didn't feel like the coaching job at the time was going to be conducive to family life. So I always wanted to come back for it to coaching, but took a step away for the time being. Fast forward, this was in 2007 that I stopped coaching. Fast forward to 2020, we moved to Florida, and all my children were school age, and it seemed the right time to get back into coaching. And I actually, after we lived here about a year, I got a call from the high school athletic director, and he said, "Hey, Tessa, I know you like to run, and we have an opening at the school. I think you should apply." And the rest is history.
Uh, we're going to talk about all that coaching stuff in our next segment. I want to go all the way back to those PE classes. I'm a lot older than you, but I certainly remember, the president's physical fitness test and all those different aspects to it, and the running, of course. Um, School wise, were there sports, in the community, in the middle school or your high school? What are your memories of those days?
So in I was in school in the time when things were transitioning from junior highs to middle schools. So we didn't have middle school sports yet. So when I went out for track in seventh grade, it was for the high school team. They had JV and they had varsity for a lot of sports. But we had all the sports where I grew up in Easley. I played soccer. I tried out for the tennis team, got cut. Tried out for cheerleading, got cut, and I think both of those both of those coaches would say, "See, we helped you become a runner, which was your calling anyways." But yeah, sports was big at my high school. It was a small town, but it was the only school in town, so we were a 4A school, so we got to go to a lot of big competitions and compete against kids from bigger towns.
Can you think back? I'm a big moments guy. Can you think back to a moment, whether it's junior high, high school, that at the time, maybe it was a practice, maybe it was a contest, that it really didn't seem like much at the time. But now looking back, with wisdom and experience and perspective, you can point to a moment and say, hey, that's a significant moment in my life that impacted me now as a coach.
Hmm. So I think hindsight is always 2020. And I will be forever grateful to my high school coach. Running was not her primary sport. She started as a basketball coach, and I think that's what she also played growing up. So I think at the time I thought, like, oh, coach doesn't know a whole lot about running. But looking back, I realized that even though she may not have known a whole lot about running, there's so much that goes into coaching beyond specific sports skills that I have learned from her. Um, the school that I went to, I believe, was a Title I school. I coach at a Title I school now, and that means there was a range of students from different backgrounds, some from lower incomes, not all of them, but just the way that she really cared for and invested in athletes. So that they would be successful in life, not just in sport. And to this day, she's retired, but I follow her on Facebook, and I cannot tell you how many athletes from even 50 years ago are still reaching out to her, telling her the difference that she made in their lives. And since I've become a coach, I've reached out to her a few times and just thanked her for that example she was to me. I had support at home, but not all my teammates had support at home, and just what she provided for them and how it's inspired me to be a better coach.
Oh, wow. That is just so cool to hear. Do you get back? Have you had a chance to, collaborate or just even talk with your coach since graduation?
So yes, the last time I saw her in person was probably about 10 years ago. She doesn't live in Easley anymore. She's retired to the mountains. But I was inducted into my high school Hall of Fame and got to hang out with her that evening. But I also had younger siblings that played sports at the school. So as they were coming through, I'd go back and watch them. And she would often be at, none of them were runners, but she would often be at other sporting events, and I would get to hang out with her.
No, that is just such a cool part of your story. Thanks for sharing. Let's go and jump ahead to college. What are some of your memories of those times, as a student, as an athlete, as a future coach?
So, going to college, I was really excited to be a part of a team where I was going to have athletes to chase. Coming from Easley, I was the fastest runner on the team from the time I joined in seventh grade. And that's not to toot my own horn. It's just that we didn't, at the time, we didn't have a whole lot of fast runners at the school. So I can remember wanting to run with the boys and do things like that to be pushed. But when I went to college, all of a sudden, I was no longer a big fish in a little pond. I was a little fish in a big pond. And I really enjoyed the challenge of having teammates that could push me, having workouts that were designed to help us peak for a conference championship and all those things. So I thoroughly enjoyed being a college athlete. And I actually considered studying health and exercise science when I was in school because I was really interested in learning more about um, conditioning and all the things that go into sports. I had a professor though who told me, he said, Tessa, he said, I think you need to focus on being well-rounded right now. You can always come back to doing health and exercise science stuff right now, but he can actually encourage me to pursue my degree, which ended up being studio art, which I think I may have been the only athlete in the art department at the time. Um, and so I ended up getting a degree in art. And when I graduated, I had a job working at a summer camp as an art teacher. But then I had no plans after no plans after that because I think it's kind of cliche, but you hear about starving artists, but there's not always a lot of job opportunities for artists. So the end of the summer was approaching, and I got a call from the coach at Furman saying that the previous assistant coach was moving on to another school and asked me if I would like to apply. And I said yes. So that's how I got into coaching.
Wow. I think so many of us, had that coach that made an impact on us and just had a positive experience and that, led to our career.
Mhm.
Let's go and take our first break for our listeners. Our guest today is Tessa Taylor. She's the head cross country and track coach at Frostproof High School right here in Florida. We're coming back with more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo and see all of their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We use it for home games, of course, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. You know, your kids are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and also promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds. Maybe it's just a simple social media post to celebrate a big win, or it could be an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things that your program is doing in the community. The team at Gipper will have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com for more information. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everybody, to our visit with Tessa Taylor, the head cross country and track coach at Frostproof High School right here in Florida. Tessa, you kind of took us through your college athlete career as that was winding down. Did you just feel called to become a coach? Was it encouragement from your coach? How did that all really come together?
So I wouldn't say I exactly felt called to being a coach, but I can remember being at my last track meet my senior year of college and just feeling sad, being like, I can't believe this was over because track and cross country had been such a big part of my life. And I didn't know what my future in the sport would be. And I really did think at that point that it was over. So when I got the call from my coach asking me to apply to be an assistant, it sort of sparked in me like, oh, it doesn't have to be over. Like it's going to be different being a coach instead of an athlete, but I can still be involved in this sport that I love.
Um, Having been a GA, and I think a lot of our listeners, or some of our listeners will say, have gone that route. Um, I think there's they think it's just going to be, glamorous and, you're just coaching, but there's a lot that goes with it being that entry level coach. What are some of your memories of, your first collegiate coaching experience?
So I did a lot of driving vans. I did a lot of timing, intervals with the stopwatch. So it wasn't like I was writing workouts and giving major direction to the team. It was more I was there to help and support. I think one of the most challenging parts of it, though, was I was now coaching the team that I had just been a part of. So the role of transitioning from teammate to coach was actually very difficult, and I don't know that I did it well. I think I found it stressful. And looking back, I probably should have sought out some mentors and people to help me get through that. It may have been better if I coached at a school where I hadn't been teammates. But again, this is where the opportunity was. So I don't regret taking the opportunity. But it was hard to transition to be a coach of athletes that I had once been teammates with.
Well, and again, I think even coaches who they graduate from college and then they end up coaching high school, you're still only a few years removed from the high school age, so that can be a challenge. I think you might have already answered this. We have an expression, um, talking about new ADs and even new coaches. You don't know what you don't know. You kind of alluded to that. Um, any other experiences, positive or maybe just learning experiences from your time as a college coach that you can look back on now and maybe chuckle a little bit?
I mean, I think I'm trying to think. I think one of the most rewarding things was to see behind the scenes and actually what goes into running a program. Even though I wasn't the one in charge, I got to see the big picture of what a coach does, what an athletic department does, and all the things that go into giving athletes a great experience and to be able to do what they do. So I think as an athlete, I probably didn't appreciate all that work that goes into an athletic program. And being an assistant coach really gave me like a window into what the world of coaching is like.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's certainly an eye opener. I tell the story. I was a head high school football coach at a small school when I was 25 and had no business being a head coach. But, you learn and, you put those lessons in your toolbox. You shared earlier that you took a break from coaching, you got your family going, and then the old expression, just when I think I was out, they pull me back in. How share again that story, how got back into coaching.
Yeah, so we've been living in Frostproof for about a year, and Frostproof is a small town. I think year round there's about 3,000 people. When it gets cold up north and the people come down south, we have about 6,000 people in town. But that's not really adding to like young people and the student population. So it's a small town, and I still run. I go run every day. So I'm sort of probably known as the crazy person that runs in Florida when it's hot. So I think the whole town knew that the person who lives down there is a runner. So I got a call from the athletic director saying, "Hey, Tessa, I know you like to run. You interested in applying for the job?" And I'd had some conversations with him before offering to volunteer with the current cross country coach. So he knew that I had some coaching experience and things like that. But when I got that call from him, I was like, oh, the time is right. So I was really excited to take the job. I originally only committed for cross country, not for track. And the two main reasons I didn't originally commit to track is one, track's a lot more of a time commitment. Um, if there are any parents listening to this, you know that if you go to a cross country meet on a Saturday morning, there's a couple of races and then you go home and you have the rest of your day. If you go to watch one of your athletes compete in track, you may watch them compete for about 10 minutes in a 10-hour day. So it is a bigger time commitment. But also, my experience was in coaching middle and distance runners, not in coaching sprints and in field events. So I ended up taking the track job as well when I found out that they were going to be hiring David Andrews, who I coach with, as the men's head coach. And he has a background coaching in college as well, but in sprints, hurdles, jumps, all the things that I felt weak in.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. My wife and I, we were very fortunate to be able to coach together. She was a collegiate cross country and distance runner, and I was a hurdler, jumper, that sort of thing. So it worked out in our staff. So my question was going to be, what have you done over your career to learn those other events? Maybe I'll still ask that question. What have you done to, I guess, improve your own coaching acumen in those other events?
Yeah. So I'd say the two things that I've done since I started coaching the same time as David Andrews is I've really learned a lot from him just in asking him questions. And like if my distance runners are out doing laps around the school, something that I don't have to time them on, I'll walk over to an event that he's working on. So I learned from him. I also listen to podcasts. I read things. I watch videos of drills and different things. So I would say just continuing to try to learn wherever I can.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned that for track coaches or for ADs, if you have a young or new track coach that might not have, let's say a master background in coaching track and field, there's just so many resources available, online, YouTube videos, things like that. 100 years ago, when I was a young coach, it was hard to find, books and things like that. Internet didn't even exist then. So good for you. And Tessa, you mentioned something. I want to pick your brain on this. You talk about track meets just going on forever because everything it seems like now is this big invitational. And I use the expression 100 years ago when I was even in college. I went to high school and college in the decade of the 70s. So there were invitationals, but the bulk of our meets were dual meets and triangular three-way meets. And a high school dual meet, it might take 2 hours to do everything. And that just seems to be a thing of the past. And you hear supporters of track, high school and college coaches, oh, we got to do something to make our sport more popular, hey, go back, in my opinion, go back to doing dual meets. What's your experience with that? Did you ever have a dual meet back in the day? Again, you're much younger than me. Or am I just that cranky old guy saying,
No.
oh, this is how we used to do it?
Well, then I might be cranky with you. So I was competing in high school in the 90s, and I'm sure that there was probably automatic timing at the state championships back then. But pretty much we maybe did one invitational other than going to our championship meets, and everything else was dual meets. And I think one of the reasons why that has changed, not only do we have the technology of automatic timing, but it's also built into the system. So, for example, if one of my athletes is going to compete at the state meet, they either have to be top two in the region or get an at-large bid. And that large bid is based on times that are at sanctioned meets. And sanctioned meets have to have the right officials and automatic timing. So then this puts pressure on coaches like we can do a dual meets all season long and that's fine. But then if we have an athlete that's close to making it state, but on the border, if we don't have a time for them or a mark for them from a sanctioned meet, they're out of luck. So I think that puts the pressure on coaches to put their athletes in meets where they're going to get sanctioned results. So I think part of it is the way the system has evolved that makes it harder to do small dual meets because to hire officials and a timer for a small dual meet, school would lose a lot of money.
Yeah, and again, that is a great point. Certainly, I think I'm going to guess a lot of coaches would like the idea of doing dual meets, but you're absolutely right. In Florida, that's the system that we have come to, and I guess another con of that, pros and cons, is we say, hey, we're in it for the kids. Only 6% of our high school kids are going to go on and compete at the college level. And so that whole elite timing and measurement and everything, that's for those elite kids. What about the other 94% that are never going to, be in a track meet after high school? So
Yeah.
again, I guess I'm still that cranky guy on the front porch. So I appreciate you being a little bit cranky with me. Okay. Um, Let's go and take another quick break. But when we come back, I want to take a deep dive into all things frostproof cross country and track and field. I want you to share, coming in, as the new coach, helping to, build a program and get it established. Hopefully, share some best practices for our listeners. So let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to give a shout out to our good friends at Hometown. Hometown is changing the game for schools and organizations with a suite of solutions that includes a lot more than digital ticketing. They're still the number one online digital ticketing provider around, but how about things like athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising? You really need to go to hometown.com and check out all the things that they can do for you. Whether you're an athletic director, a head coach, or a school administrator, Hometown makes it easy for you and your school to save time, raise more money, and help bring your community together. To find out more, just go to hometown.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. You put one of their units in your gym lobby, your main school hallway. It's going to be like a magnet for kids, for coaches, even teachers. How about sponsors and alums? You really got to see it to believe it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. As always, please mention the podcast. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle School. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just love the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids love the videos, our parents love the streaming, but there's a lot more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Tessa, you've shared, your journey so far. It's brought you to Frostproof, Florida, Frostproof High School. One of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of best practices. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. Um, what were some of the things that you did when you first took over, the cross country and then, became the head track coach as well? What were some things that you did as far as organization, culture building? How have you built your program and keeping it going at Frostproof?
So when I first started at Frostproof, I really wondered if I was going to have enough kids to fill my cross country roster. So during summer conditioning, I only had 6 to 7, both boys and girls show up. And I talked to the previous coach, and he said numbers had gone down over the previous years because of his job. He wasn't able to have practice until the evenings. So kids would ride the bus home from school, and then once they were home, it was really hard for them to get back for practice. So going into it, I knew that I needed to have practice after school when I would be able to reach the most kids, get them before going home. So that was one of the first things I did. I also, since I was new to the community and new to the school, I'm not a teacher. I have another day job. So I'm not at the school all day. I wanted to get to know people. So after practice every day, when the kids would go to the pickup line to be picked up by their parents, I would stand out there and I would talk to all the parents and try to get to know them, even just wave and say hi. So those were a couple things I did in my first year coaching. I also realized my first year coaching that I knew a lot about running, but I didn't necessarily know a whole lot about coaching. So that's when I found out about the program at Florida State University, a new online master's program in coaching. And there was actually a scholarship available in Polk County that would cover half of my tuition. So when I heard about that, I applied and I said, yes, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
Um, Thanks for giving our good friends at FSU coach a shout out, and Polk County, Dan Talbot and Courtney Winemaker, the district ADs down there, good friends of the show. Um, as you were, improving yourself as a coach, professional development, and also, focusing on improving the team, what was, again, going back to this idea of moments? Um, can you think of a moment? And again, as coaches or as leaders, we never say, "Oh, okay, I got it made. I can relax now." But uh, was there a moment when you kind of realized, "All right, this is working. This is good. We're going in the right direction." Any moments stick out for you?
Well, so first, I'm going to share a moment where I realized I needed to have a better plan. I think it's always good to be prepared than to be surprised by things that happen. And this actually, so my daughter is in middle school and she is on our team. And just going back, our school is a middle, senior high school combined. So we have 6th through 12th graders on our team. So she was a 6th grader on my cross country team. And when you get to the state series at the district meet, 10 athletes can compete. And then at the region meet, if you qualify, 7 athletes compete. And that's who then goes on to compete at state. So we were going into the district meet with 10 runners. And I said, whoever the top 7 in this race are going to be the ones that go on to compete at the region meet. Now, most of the season, I thought that would be a good plan because the same top 7 were usually the same every race. So I didn't think that would be a problem. Well, my daughter ended up being the one who had a bad race that day at districts, finished 8th. And so I'd already said that I was going to take the top 7 from that race and move on to region. So my daughter was the one that didn't get to race next. And I had 2 things going on. One, I didn't want to show favoritism and give her an opportunity because she was my daughter, and I knew I needed to stick to my word. But I also realized that as a coach, it is good to have like let your athletes know how you're making decisions in some ways, but I also wanted to have more autonomy to make decisions in the future. Where if I had an athlete who ran well all season and had one bad day, doesn't mean all of a sudden they don't have an opportunity later on. So that was something I was thinking about, which actually then followed into my first class that I was taking at FSU Coach, which was philosophy of coaching. And one of the exercises we did, which really any coach can do, is we had to go through um, decide what our core values were, and from our core values, develop a philosophy of coaching. So going through that process has helped me to realize like what is it that I actually value? What is it I want to instill in my athletes? And also communicate it with them so they know what to expect from me as a coach. And so now every year at the beginning of cross country season with my parents and my athletes, I go through what our core values are. We sign a code of conduct, but I can also explain to them that, as a coach, I'm going to try to be as fair as I can, but ultimately it's my decision at the end of the day who competes and meets. And I always have those conversations with my other coach as well. So I'm not making those entirely by myself, but I also have the confidence now to say, like, hey, I'm the coach. I can make this decision.
Well, again, just some great, foundational wisdom there for any coach or even an athletic director. I literally was just on the road this weekend in two different states, speaking to at athletic director conferences, and that exact component, having your own philosophy as a coach, having your philosophy as an athletic director, as a department, it's just so critical for situations just like you described. Um, Cross country and track are sometimes easier, swimming again because the stopwatch, the tape measure, doesn't lie. It's pretty easy to figure out, who the best kids are, and there's other factors that go into it. But yeah, great story, great reflection on your part, and I'm going to guess. Now moving forward, the kids and the parents, since you've been there for a while, they know exactly where Coach Taylor's coming from, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Um, as when you look at when you first took over, and again, nothing against the previous coach or anything like that, to where you are now, um, I'm going to guess numbers have increased, but what's something that you're particularly proud of about the way the program has grown? And again, these are my words. You're not bragging too much, but I want you to brag. How has it grown under your leadership?
So the first year was really a learning and building year, but every year since this is now I'm in my fourth year coaching. Our boys cross country team has qualified for the state championships, which they are super proud of. I'm super proud of them for that. But I think that's what you'll see in our record book. I think the thing that I'm most proud of though is that part of my philosophy of coaching is that I want every single one of my runners to be healthy, to learn to love to run, and to experience self improvement. And that is something that the boys who go run in the state championship can do. That's also something the sixth grader who's never played a sport in their life can do. And I think just watching the excitement of kids setting goals and reaching them and improving and how proud they are of themselves and how they see how hard work pays off, that is probably the most rewarding thing for me as a coach to witness.
Mhm. Now, again, my wife's career cross country runner, coach, et cetera, Hall of Fame coach. And being married to the athletic director, who is also the head football coach at a number of our stops, I think we did a very good job of promoting all of our sports. But sometimes um, cross country can maybe feel like they're taking a back seat to football and some of the other sports. Um, is that a thing for you at Frostproof? I'm trying to phrase this in a good way. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but do you and your kids feel like, hey, we're respected, we're supported, just like all the other teams at Frostproof?
I mean, I don't want to speak for my athletes, but I think that's something that we've definitely been working on. I think part of it is just that it's not as visible of a sport. everyone's going to the football game on Friday nights, but who's waking up at 6 in the morning to go watch a cross country meet? So we don't automatically get the same visibility, but our school's really good. We have a TV production teacher who does announcements and highlights things. So I'm always turning things into him so that the cross country and track teams can be recognized. I think things like that are really helpful. Um, but also with us being a small school, some of my cross country runners also play football. So I don't know how often this happens, but this past fall, I had two athletes play in the state championship football game. And then drive that night to Tallahassee and the next morning compete in the state cross country meet. So we have athletes that play sometimes even three sports at once in a small school. And a lot of times this means that running is not my athlete's number one sport. And that's another thing that I have to remember, as much as track and cross country are the sports I'm passionate about, I have to realize that sometimes I have an athlete who this may be their third sport and they're doing it to stay in shape. But on the other hand, I can also remind those athletes, like, hey, you know how soccer is your number one sport? Well, for Bob over here, running is his number one sport, and he's counting on you as a teammate to show up for him. So it goes both ways.
Again, that's another great point. I don't know if I've ever heard of that, competing in the state playoffs and then the next day going to the state cross country meet. Um, but that's life at a small school. Still remember that school I was at as a young rookie football coach. Very first game, it's halftime. We're running in the locker room, and three of my players, they go, Coach, we got to go. I go, what do you mean you got to go? They're playing in the band at halftime. And I said, what? And so hey, they went and played in the band. Then they came back, and we played the second half. But that's what you do at a small school. Tessa, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but let's do it right now. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, whether it's, coaching, leadership, organization, what's the best way that our listeners can connect with Tessa Taylor?
So you're always welcome to email me. It's tessa.taylor@gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram. I actually have an Instagram page for called Frostproof Running. So if people want to see what our team is up to, they can follow Frostproof Running.
You see me writing that down. We're going to add that to our links in the show notes. Again, our guest today, Tessa Taylor, head cross country and track coach at Frostproof High School right here in Florida. Let's take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results, communication. For me, the athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is a game changer. You really got to see it to believe it. In Florida, Home Campus is the official sports administration software for all of our FHSAA schools. And if your state has a different platform, you can still be a home campus school for the athletic eligibility and clearance. To find out more, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We'd also like to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also earning 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To find out more, get in touch with Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school with our teams and had great success. Coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com to get started. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD podcast. Once again, our guest is Tessa Taylor. She's the head cross country and track coach at Frostproof High School here in Florida. Tessa, you and I were talking during the break, and you shared an initiative, a program that you have started. I think it's just fantastic. Can you share with our listeners, what that is, and maybe how they might find out a little bit more about it?
Yes. So, one of the things that I have learned through my research and coaching and also observed firsthand is that in the middle school years, girls drop out of sports at twice the rate of boys. I've seen this on my own team. Most of my runners are middle schoolers. By the time they get to high school, I have less participation, and I have about twice as many boys on my team as girls. This is not unique to Frostproof. There are statistics that this is a global thing, not even just in the United States, but around the world. And there are different theories as to why this is. But one of the factors has to do with girls going through puberty. When boys go through puberty, they usually have more of a linear upward progression in sport. They get testosterone and they get bigger, faster, and stronger. For girls, the path is not as linear. There's a lot more ups and downs. Um, and if they stick through sports, they usually come out stronger on the other end, but it's getting through the plateaus and the ups and downs, getting used to some of the changes that may at first not seem as conducive to sports, but in the end make us stronger. So, a program that I started this year at the local elementary school, and we only have one elementary school in town. So, these are the same students that will then be coming to Frostproof Middle Senior High School one day, is called the Girls Movement. And the Girls Movement is part of Marathon Kids, which is a national organization that helps get elementary school kids active through local running clubs. So I started this at the local elementary school. We meet once a week. We have a little lesson that has something to do with healthy lifestyle or about we'll have usually a keyword every week like grit or endurance or things like that we talk about. Then we run laps and we have a tracker where they get to scan their tag every time they run a lap and work towards a group goal. And then we play some sort of game at the end. And it's been a lot of fun. I've just done my first year and the girls love it. I can't say what the long-term results are yet, but I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future.
Well, what a great idea. And you mentioned, at the lower school level, there's no health curriculum. Do they still have, is there PE at all? Is there daily PE at that level?
They do have PE. I don't think they go to PE every day, maybe 2 or 3 days a week.
And, have you had a chance to talk to, the PE coach? And again, these are my words. So often, running in PE, particularly, in the lower levels, running is punishment. And, we certainly don't want that. But, anything working, any plans to work with the physical education department?
So this hasn't happened yet, but one of the PE coaches is interested in this program because it's something that the whole Marathon Kids Girls Movement program also has guidelines for if you're going to incorporate it into a PE class. So the school's principal loves this program. She comes out and participates with us sometimes. There's a PE coach that is interested in it. So I'm not sure what all will happen next year, but that's definitely on the table. And one thing I will say, at least at our school here in Frostproof, is the young kids love to run. Like if they're going to be punished in PE, is that they have to like sit down on their spot on the circle. Like they want to run.
Oh, I mean, that's great. Very cool. What's some of the feedback you've gotten from the parents of the kids that are involved in this program?
So I haven't had a whole lot of feedback from parents. It's a program that starts before school, so a lot of times they just drop the kids off and then they go on to their jobs. So I don't have a lot of interaction with parents. I do. I have an email list, so I email them and keep them updated on what's going on. I haven't received any negative feedback, so I think that's probably good. But I have gotten good feedback from the kids. So at the beginning of the year, we did a survey with them, and then we did another survey right before Christmas break. It was the same one with the same questions, but just to see like if any of their attitudes have changed. And a lot of them, where they would have been a little bit more timid and not as self-assured, and a little bit more hesitant towards the end, had a lot more confidence and felt like, yeah, I can run, I can accomplish goals, I can do these things. So I did see growth in kids. And there was one girl in particular who she probably is a little bit of a troublemaker. She's one of those kids that when the first couple weeks I was wondering, like, am I going to have to talk with the principal and see if we need to come up with a plan? Um, if she's going to continue to participate just because of the way she was treating some of the other kids. And I decided instead of doing that, the first thing I'm going to do is try to give her more positive attention. So after the lesson, when we go run laps, I decided today I'm going to stick with her for all the laps and just try to get to know her a little bit, ask her some questions about herself, all these sort of things. And that actually turned things around. I can't say if it's changed how she acts during the school day, but when she comes to running club, she has a better attitude, doesn't bully the other kids, and she just needed somebody to have a little bit of positive influence on her.
Oh, absolutely. And there are just so many kids, just like that. Is it a quarter? Is it third, a half? Is it most kids are like that? They're looking for that connection, and you certainly were there to provide it. Very cool. We were talking earlier that high school sports is in a way gets geared toward the elite and qualifying for state and the automatic timing. It's great to see this program that's just reaching out, for movement and fitness and things like that. Is there anything in the back of your mind, I say with a cautionary note about, turning this or having a component of it be, training and competition and middle school championships and things like that? Is that in there? Or you trying to stay away from that?
I mean, definitely in the girls' movement program with the elementary school, I'm staying away from that. But in coaching over at the middle and high school, I'm a competitive person. I like to win. I actually just competed in the world championships for masters track and field a couple weeks ago in Gainesville. So, um, but I think my approach to it may be different than how other coaches approach it. I'm not a win at all cost coach. I want to do things the right way. And I also care a lot about long term. So, for example, if I have an athlete who's not going to go on to compete in college, I want them to be able to enjoy their high school experience and not feel like running track and cross country is punishment. I want them to work hard and know they can do hard things. Then, on the other hand, if I have an athlete who is talented and is going to go on, I want to leave them room to grow. There are some high school programs that have their athletes running 70 miles a week. But then when they get to college, what is there left for them to do? So I don't want to burn out my athletes in high school to get them to college. I want them to progress in a healthy way. And so that may mean being in it for the long game and being patient, but we still have big goals. We still want to win state one day and those sort of things, but we want to do it the right way.
Oh, I love it. Great, great stuff. I'm curious to see how that program uh, continues to grow and pays dividends for the kids as well as for your program down the road. This has been so cool spending some time with you, get to know you a little bit. Looking forward to meeting you in person at some track meets and cross country races down the road. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director. I think you could be a very good one, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. We're going to take our final break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new leader, a brand new head coach, maybe even a brand new AD. But I'm only going to let you put 3 tools in the toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Tessa Taylor puts into her new athletic director toolbox. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. Now, at my school, we use surveys for just about everything. We surveyed our student athletes, our coaches, our teachers, our parents. And here's the fun thing. The information that would come back on these surveys was almost always over the top positive. We had those responses where people shared a concern, and the survey allowed us to address it. But like I said, 98% of the respondents gave us favorable information. And it's going to be the same for you. Athletic Surveys is going to create a custom survey that allows you to take the pulse of everybody in your program. And that information is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with that frustrated parent, or sometimes even your principal, or maybe even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them create that custom survey just for you. It's athleticsurveys.com. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Tessa Taylor. She's the head cross country and track coach at Frostproof High School. Tremendous background as an athlete, now as a coach and as a leader. But right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director, maybe a brand new coach, on their very first job. But I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Tessa, what 3 tools are going to go into your new leadership toolbox?
So the first one I don't think will come as a surprise since we've already talked about this some, but it's to figure out your core values. And if you don't know what they are, there are all sorts of free tools online that'll take you through exercises to figure out what they are. But figure out what your core values are, communicate them. So if you're a coach, let your athletic director know, let your athletes know. If you're an athletic director, let your coaches know. And so communicate them, but then also stick to them. And falling back on these will help make tough decisions. And it'll also help you sleep well at night after you've made a tough decision.
All right, I was scribbling those down. I got the core values. That's again one of our most frequent ones. Communication. In this edition of the toolbox, it's actually going to be the number one most frequently mentioned tool so far. Do you got another one you can share with us?
I would also say just having a growth mindset. I think as coaches, a lot of times we see a growth mindset as being good for our athletes to have in the sense of like if you work on your physical skills, you're going to improve. But we can also have a growth mindset as coaches where we can keep learning and developing our skills. One example for me is that I've never seen myself as a public speaker. Speaking in front of large groups used to make me nervous, and I would get a knot in my stomach. So one of the things that I worked on when I was in the FSU coach program was having a growth mindset towards my communication skills. So I actually practiced breathing exercises to help calm me down before any sort of public speaking, but I also committed to never turning an opportunity down. So through practicing breathing skills and having just more practice doing it, I was able to change how I felt about my public speaking skills. So that's just an example of how any leader can have a growth mindset and improve personally.
Oh, again, I love that. We talk frequently about, being a lifelong learner, embracing, education over your career. But I love that phrase, growth mindset. And whatever you've been doing, it's been great. You were, a tremendous speaker today on the podcast. Thanks so much for sharing.
Mhm.
One more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their network, pick your brain a little bit. And listeners, I think you have a great resource here. What's the best way that they can get a hold of Tessa Taylor?
You can email me at tessa.taylor@gmail.com. You can follow Frostproof Running on Instagram. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I am also on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, we will put all that information in our show notes. And again, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. All the best as we continue to march through our spring season. You and I talked about this, those district, region, and those state meets are coming up. Definitely going to look to connect with you at the state meet this year. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Jake. I enjoyed it.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back and join us again for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.